introduction. Senator Rosenwald, thank you for the very kind words and for knowing so much about our part of the world and the service that we tried to provide for El Paso and for welcoming us to your senatorial district. We are grateful. President Jordan and Nashua Community College, thank you for having us in your house. Go Jaguars. Is there a roar or growl that we make as Jaguars? I'll teach you that afterwards. To Representative Tulerski of the firm Tulerski and Sons, just met your two sons as well. Thank you for being here. Congratulations on your election and the service that you're already providing. This senator, this representative, in part responsible for passing paid family leave so that families can afford, if signed by the governor, we need to keep the pressure up. Families can afford to take care of themselves without expense to their income, to their livelihood, to being able to keep a job. And that's so important, and that's a lead that we should follow in Washington, D.C., and I certainly intend to do that. And Annie Custer sat next to her every day on the House Veterans Affairs Committee. And not only did we work on improving access to world-class mental health care at the VA for more veterans. For too many, it is still out of reach. And we just learned that the 20 a day that we're losing every day has just been confirmed again. And that's a conservative estimate. 16 of those 20 unable to get care at the VA because they couldn't get in, or they were unwilling because they saw how long the lines stretched. And at some point, they just gave up. So care delayed became care deferred, became care denied. It turned into some really tragic outcomes, and it still does. And Annie Custer was a leader on connecting veterans, especially in rural communities, especially in a state that doesn't have a full-service VA medical center, making sure that we do everything we can, partnering with private providers, partnering with nonprofit public providers, partnering with anyone, anywhere to make sure that those veterans who have put their lives on the line for this country and earned this care can actually receive it. She and I worked together on a bill that expanded access to mental health care for those women and men who came back with an other than honorable discharge, which before her leadership meant that they were by law precluded from setting foot in a VA to get the care that you and I want them to have. Their rate of suicide twice as high as the general veterans population. Though we were in the minority, we were able to find common ground and consensus. And yes, though this is a four-letter word amongst many of our colleagues, compromise with Republicans to introduce legislation that passed 435 to 0 in the House, passed the Senate, signed into law by a man with whom we agree perhaps on almost nothing, Donald Trump, but could find enough common ground on this to open up mental health care to veterans with an other than honorable discharge. And then I want to tell you this story. So I was at a town hall like this, held them every single month in El Paso, open to anyone. You could ask any question, level any criticism, raise any idea or proposal. I had a healthy fear going into those meetings. I was going to face my constituents, those whom I served, who put me into this position of public trust, and I was going to account for myself. The votes I had taken, the legislation that we were working on, the progress that we made or had failed to make. It kept me accountable, made me responsive, and it made me a far better representative than I would have been otherwise. El Paso is home to Fort Bliss, 32,000 active duty service members, the 1st Armored Division, and a population of more than 70,000 veterans served out of our VA. So it was not unusual for veterans to come to a town hall to take the microphone, to share with me some of the challenges that they were experiencing, or maybe some of the good stories of being cared for at the VA. A gentleman took the mic at one of these town halls, and he said, "I am buying heroin on the streets of El Paso. This journey began with a legally prescribed opioid at our VA, an opioid to which I became addicted. My prescription was cut off with no alternative prescription or therapy or care at all. So I'm taking care of myself and my pain the best that I know how." I told Annie this story. She invited me to a bipartisan task force that she had created, Republicans and Democrats, focused on addressing the opioid crisis in New Hampshire, in Texas, in this country. And not only did we sit and listen to one another's stories and understand that we had a common challenge and a common problem to which we must put everything that we could and put our differences aside to achieve. Thanks to her leadership, she's been able to bring funding to Nashua, to this state and other parts of the country to address substance abuse problems here. So I want to thank her not just for taking the important step of reaching across the aisle, but of actually getting something done, not allowing the perfect to become the enemy of the good, and saving more lives in the process. What a great example and inspiration to me and to others. And just so you know, we spent the last 40 minutes from Concord to Nashua talking about not just Nashua Community College, which she bragged about almost the entire way, but some of the leadership that your state senators and your state reps are taking, ideas that you are pioneering and modeling for the country right here, safe stations, so fire stations where anyone can go in without fear of entanglement in the criminal justice system and get the care that they need if they have an opioid addiction or we have fear of someone overdosing, saving lives in the process, something that we should expand to other parts of the country. She pointed out a pilot program in this state where those who are incarcerated are getting access to mental health care treatment and substance abuse treatment. It can be a model not just for the rest of New Hampshire, but for the rest of the country. When you think about the fact that we have the largest prison population per capita on the face of the planet, and there are comorbidities in those prison populations of substance abuse and untreated mental health care challenges, know this, that when we release people who have not received any meaningful care while they have been in our custody, we're almost ensuring that they will come back into our care and custody at public expense, never fully well enough or able to live up to their full potential, reveal their genius to this country, do the things they were placed on the planet to perform, the school that they could have attended, the job they could have held, the taxes they could have paid, that fair share of the burden that they could have shouldered so that it would rest a little bit lighter on the rest of us, the jobs they could have created, the families that they could have been the heads of. All of that lost to all of us, y además, to add insult to injury, we are paying through our taxes for their incarceration and their future incarceration until we stop the cycle. I'm so grateful for her courage, for her bravery. This isn't easy to talk about. In a country where so many of us are saying, throw the book at them, lock them up, turn our backs on them. They're bad people. They did bad stuff. We don't care about them. No, they're our fellow Americans, our fellow human beings. They deserve our respect. They deserve to be treated with dignity. They deserve a shot at success if we will just give it to them. So, Annie, just know that I want to follow your lead. I would love to be a partner with you in the White House to make sure that we get mental health care and substance abuse care to everyone, including those who are incarcerated. So again, thank you. You may or may not know or have been to my hometown of El Paso, Texas. I know that at least one of you has been to the state of Texas because I see that Astros hat over here. El Paso, the one city in our state in the mountain time zone, at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, base elevation of 4,000 feet, in the middle of the Chihuahuan Desert, connected to Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico, forming the largest binational community in the Western Hemisphere. 3 million of us speaking 2 languages, from 2 cultures, who have 2 histories, who form one people, not divided but joined by the Rio Grande River, forming something far greater and more powerful than the sum of our parts or the number of people. El Paso, Texas today, for the last 20 years, one of, if not the safest cities in the United States of America. Not despite the fact that we are a city of immigrants and asylum seekers, people from the world over. In fact, a quarter of those with whom I live were born in another country, chose us, found a home in El Paso, and their very presence has made us stronger and more successful, and yes, safer and more secure, helping us to understand and to demonstrate to the rest of the country that you don't need a $30 billion, 2,000-mile, 30-foot-high wall. You don't need to militarize our communities, send 5,500 service members to the border. You don't need to put kids in cages and deport their moms back to the deadliest countries on the face of the planet. Security can be purchased not through walls and militarization. It can be found when we treat one another with the respect that we are owed as human beings. When folks don't fear law enforcement, they're going to report crimes, testify in trials, serve as witnesses, make our communities safe, as they have done in El Paso. When folks can come out of the shadows, who are already contributing so much to this country's success, they can contribute to their full potential. Imagine more than 1 million dreamers, not just the students in the classroom, but very often now the teachers in the classroom, not just being defended by those who are serving in Afghanistan and Iraq tonight. They are serving in Afghanistan and Iraq tonight in any meaningful way, just as American as anyone else in this room, in this country, in our lives. And yet they fear deportation back to a country that they've never known, whose language they do not speak, where they may no longer have family, where if they are successful, their success will accrue to that place and that country, not New Hampshire, not this country, not El Paso, not Texas. So if we are going to meet the challenges by our perspective and our history and our understanding of our values and our reality here on the ground in Nashua, where I learned from President Jordan that we have a number of immigrants, first-generation immigrants, attending this institution, or my community of El Paso, or wherever you may be from in the United States. We're going to make sure that we rejoin those families who have been separated. Never take a kid from another mother who's traveled 2,000 miles and is at their most desperate and vulnerable moment. If we're going to give every single dreamer citizenship in their true home country, the United States, so they never have to fear leaving this place and can do everything they were intended to do in their lives here for all of us, then it's going to take all of us, not half of us, not half measure, not one person, not one political party. At a time of historic division and polarization and hyper-partisanship, if all we respond with is more of the same, we're going to get the same result. The very definition of insanity, I think first defined by Albert Einstein. If, however, we're able to see one another in each other, a shared future in this country, I am confident that we can defy the differences of faith or geography or immigration status or race or anything else that the current president tries to use to keep us apart, to keep us angry, and to keep us afraid. If we come together on immigration, just like if we come together on healthcare and ensure that in a country that is the wealthiest and the most powerful on the face of the planet in the whole of human history, to ensure that those who cannot see a doctor or afford their prescriptions or take their child to a therapist now can and be well enough to learn, to go to work and to start businesses and to live to their full potential. If we can come together as a country to make sure that this economy works for everyone, because you cannot work full-time in New Hampshire or Texas and earn $7.25 an hour and put food on the table, a roof over your heads, medication for your kids, and pay back those student loan debts. You have to work 2 or 3 jobs in this state and in mine to make that happen. If we can ensure that women are paid what men are paid for doing the same work in the same number of hours, if we can ensure that you cannot be fired for your sexual orientation, as you can in so many states still in this country, and if we guarantee that if you are ready to earn and want to join an apprenticeship, learn a trade or a skill that will allow you to live with purpose and function in your life and command a living wage for the rest of it, if your job has been automated out of existence and you want to return to the workforce, or you finished raising your kids at home and now you want to earn a paycheck out in the workforce, I want to make sure that in a country that has diminished the power of unions, over the last 30 years, we strengthen them again and provide a pathway for every American to be career ready. At the same time, we want every graduating high school senior to be college ready. And ready not just to learn, to be able to afford to do that. Investing in community colleges like this one by making sure that they are free for every single American. Making sure that 4-year degrees are being obtained without taking on debt that is crippling, especially in this state. I've learned, because I've listened to you now on this second visit, that you hold more student loan debt per capita than any other state in the union. I've learned that your higher education costs are driving young people out of this state. After everything that you have invested in them, in their K or pre-K through 12 education, in their quality of life in communities like Nashua, in the parks and the streetlights, the libraries, all of that investment now is somewhere else in another state, returning a profit to some other people. And this state, I was told today, is now the second oldest in the country, having a hard time attracting young people back here to perform the jobs that you are creating, but that are not filled anymore. So if we want to meet that challenge, not only do we stop digging the hole by making higher education affordable, but we begin to forgive the debts for those who will dedicate their lives to public service, the public school educators in those classrooms where we need them, those 45,000 unfilled positions in the VA. If you're willing to dedicate your life to a community in an in-demand, underserved profession, especially if you are serving kids, the next generation, or those generations that have served this country, then let's invest in you and wipe clear that debt. Let's also refinance the existing debt for those who can no longer bear it. Of the $1.5 trillion that we have outstanding right now, 10% is in default because it is no longer bearable. A drag not just on those who have the debt, not just on their families, but on our economy as a whole. So this is a public investment that will produce public good if we're willing to do it. And then on the greatest challenge of them all, climate, and the fact that this planet has cooked 1 degree Celsius just since 1980 over pre-industrial revolution levels, and that is responsible, not God, not nature, us, our own emissions, our own inaction in the face of the science and the facts and the truth. For the floods that we see in Houston, 58 inches of rain fell from the sky in 2017. It was the landfall record for as long as we've been keeping them in North America, and it was the third 500-year flood in just 5 years. So folks had not finished rebuilding from the last one before the next one hit. And scientists tell us that those floods, those storms, these droughts, these fires will only become more devastating and more deadly and more frequent and more profound unless we change course now. There are 10 years left to us as a civilization, as a human race, within which to act, to free ourselves from a dependence on fossil fuels, to invest wholly in renewable energy from the sun, from the wind, to make sure that farmers in rural communities can do their part by planting cover crops to capture more of the carbon out of the air, to use precision tilling to disturb less of it that's in the soil. If all of us do all that we can, we, United States, can return to our rightful role as the indispensable nation, convening the other powers of the planet to come together to do their part as well. And then we can tell our kids and our grandkids, the people of the future, that at this defining moment of truth, we were not found wanting. That we did everything that we could and that it was enough. I want to make sure that at this moment, we don't labor under the illusion that any one person, any one president, any one party can make any of this happen. It will take an entire country coming together. That's why we are going everywhere, listening to everybody, writing no one off, and taking no one for granted. This is a campaign for America, for everyone in America. That's why I'm so grateful to be here with you tonight in Nashua to share with you that I'm running to serve you as the next President of the United States of America. Thank you all for having us out and looking forward to your questions and hearing what's on your mind. Thank you very much.